effective communication. I think everything stems around being able to effectively communicate what you're looking for, what your team needs to do, what your objective is. We're at point A, we need to get to point B. How do we go about doing that? And part of that communication is listening to your team, listening to the folks around you and the ideas they have. A lot of times they're what make it success. Not me. It's the team and the people that I surround myself with and make it successful.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Culbert, and today's guest is going to be a blast to have a discussion with. He's a wealth of knowledge. He has over a decade's worth of experience in the facilities and manufacturing industry. He and his team are the backbone of the facilities infrastructure, working tirelessly to support the production workforce while maintaining and upgrading all building systems. His expertise spans a broad spectrum of responsibilities, from coordinating complex building additions and renovations to managing the relocation of capital assets and enhancing building utilities. He works closely with business unit leaders, finance teams, and EH&S professionals to ensure that every project is executed efficiently and is in compliance with the latest safety standards and regulations. He's the facility engineering manager at Pratt Whitney. Curtis Moulton, welcome to the show.
Oh, wow, Jay. Thank you for the kind words. You really talked me up there.
Hey, it's accurate.
Yeah. Try to work hard and make sure we go after the goals and accomplish them. That's really all I'm here for the team and for Pratt, and just working hard.
I've seen that with you. We've known each other over 10 years now, right? And those are very true words.
I appreciate that.
You walk that talk for sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. That. So in the decade plus that we've known each other, all the experiences we've shared together, but everything you've done, what's been your biggest lesson learned?
If I picked one, effective communication. I think everything stems around being able to effectively communicate what you're looking for, what your team needs to do, what your objective is. We're at point A, we need to get to point B. How do we go about doing that? And part of that communication is listening to your team, listening to the folks around you and the ideas they have. A lot of times, here's the problem we face, guys. What are your ideas? Get their feedback first. 1 million square foot facility here at Pratt Whitney, North Berwick. Lot going on. I don't know everything about this facility for sure. So I rely on the team, try to communicate what needs to be done to them, and then listen to their ideas. A lot of times they're what make it success. Not me. It's the team and the people that I surround myself with and make it successful.
I've seen that with you, Kurt, obviously. And I think if I could ask, how does the communication bridge itself to the other business unit leaders? And because you're not just I've seen you not just communicate with your own team. It's multiple departments. It's impressive. And like you said, it's over 1 million square feet that you're managing and improving. Yeah.
So how I kind of bridge that gap is build those relationships with the business unit leaders, the managers, the supervisors, even the employees. We do a bunch of machine moves here, constantly upgrading the facility, but just going down on the floor, working with the folks that run the equipment, get their feedback, try to see what the business unit needs in their objective, but also see what works for the folks running the equipment. And when we bring it back to our area, how can we implement that into the layout? How can we take some of that low-hanging fruit and make the whole process better? And just working with the people, working with the EHS, asking the questions, working with security and maintenance and all the groups, and get everyone's feedback and buy-in. Just making it a big group effort to make it happen.
Excellent. So I have a follow-up question to that would be you run what, 3 shifts a day? You basically 24/7, almost
Oh yeah.
365, right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So how do you communicate between shifts? What are the systems that you use? What are the communication trees? How do you maintain that over 3 shifts?
I think it stems from being the leaders on that team. So if you take the site group, for example, the supervisors here all make sure we're on the same page. If you're on the second shift supervisor, third shift, weekend shift supervisor, we try to get all the same message. That being consistent is key. Having that consistency drives it to the next shift, and then having good shift turnover with the workers. So if there's something that's being worked on first, making sure that there's that overlap in time where they can have that face-to-face communication. Here's where I'm at. Here's what I've done. Here's what I see as an issue. This is what I got for information. This is what I was working on. How can we resolve this? And it's just being able to communicate to those off shifts. I think face to face. Everyone, emails are great. You can get it out there, but a phone call or face to face communication, I think is very effective in making it happen and having everyone consistent. So there's, we got standard works in place. We got notes and adding history on the computer for all the work we've done. But I think just having that face to face helps bridge that gap between shifts and being consistent among the supervisors.
Is there an I love that you said shift turnover in the face to face. Yeah, agreed. Is there a standard procedure or a chart or a list or a checklist that everyone needs to cover when they're face to face at that shift turnover? How do you handle that?
There's not quite a specific list or chart. I have the powerhouse and contractors and cleaners. So each group has its, best ways. Cleaners may like something drawn on the board. Hey, first shift completed these tasks. Second shift comes in, there's some face to face, and they see the issues that were outlined. Powerhouse does it great. They like to use a notebook. So I think it's catering to the group's needs. What is the group need for that communication, and what do they like? I don't like implementing something that, it's not effective. It doesn't work for that group. You really have to see what works for the group. And then, as leaders, making sure we do that for that group and make sure they get that information that way.
Outstanding. You touched on team quite a few times, and I want to emphasize it a little bit because I've seen it firsthand. I enjoy working with yourself and your team every time we have an interaction. How do you empower them? How do they maintain forward momentum when you're not present, for example? How do you lead them?
Yeah. So I think you touched on like empowerment, right? I want them to be able to make decisions. Data-based decision making is key in this role. And I think it's just communicating them, like we said previously, of like, guys, I know you're gonna make mistakes. I know it's gonna be some tough decisions. I'm here to support you, but please make that decision. I want you to grow and develop. And how we grow and develop is by making decisions and trying ourselves, learning, failing, getting back up and trying it again. And what I tell them is, you're not going to get in trouble by making a mistake. If you make a decision based on all the data and it's an educated decision and it doesn't work out, well, next time we'll learn from that. And then next time we'll do a little bit better next time. But just having their back, building those relationships and building that trust between team members. I have a lot of new engineering techs in the last couple of years. And a lot of them are green. But they had the drive, compassion. Like, I want to do better. I want to do more. I want to grow within Pratt. And that's what I love. These folks were eager to learn, eager to work. And once you get their trust and be like, yeah, here's a learning lesson. Don't do that again, but take a step back, think about it.
Hmm.
Look at it from this perspective. Try doing that again. So when they're faced with the opportunity to make the decision, they remember that conversation and that truthful, honest communication of, hey, yeah, this might be a hard conversation. And that can be another talking point here is not being afraid as a leader to have those hard conversations and being able to communicate what went right, what went wrong, and how can you do better the next time? And
Yeah, please do expand on that. That's a great discussion topic, Kurt.
yeah.
Because how many people will tend to avoid or delay those conversations, and
Oh, I
let's make it
think it's
better, right?
a lot of people, and I I don't want to say I get used to it, but I see the benefit of having those tough conversations. So I'm willing to have those conversations with those employees of like, hey, I'm not here to, you know, yell at you or say you did this wrong, but hey, this is what I've noticed as a leader. This is what we can do better in these circumstances. Here's what I suggest of how we correct that in the future, and then just grow and develop the person, the individual, the
Hmm.
employee. And I love to see people succeed and grow and develop and move up within the company. It's a great feeling to see like you take someone, you kind of mold them into a person,
Hmm.
and they just reach out and they have excellent communication skills. They can make decisions. They gather data. They make a decision off data now, and that that to me is why I do this role is to see people grow, develop, and be successful.
That's fantastic. Can you? I want to get a little gritty. What's an example or two of a difficult conversation? What would you classify that as? A
I think the toughest one is catching someone not being truthful
Mm.
or not giving you an honest answer.
Hmm.
I think it's difficult for the person, bringing it up. Hey, I this is happening. We need to correct this behavior. Whether it be honesty, truthfulness, or just time management. Hey, I noticed you're not being effective in your time, and I find what is hard about that is how do you do it so the person receiving the message doesn't have that awful reaction. What do you mean
Hmm.
I'm wasting time? I'm doing my best. Yeah, but let's try to be better. Try to be better
Hmm.
as an individual. And um, I've gotten better with those conversations through the year. But I think that's the hardest one because no one wants to hear they're not doing their job well or they're not doing their job good. And everyone has some sort of pride in their work. And when you go and say, hey, this isn't working out, this is not a great job, you need to do better, it hits home and there's that reaction, and then as a
Sure.
leader, supervisor, manager, how do you deal with that reaction? All right, yeah, I understand. I understand where you're coming from, and then just coaching them through that. Okay, great. How can we improve on this? Here's what I was expecting. Is there something I can do to help you out in the future? Are you missing equipment, tools? Is there
Hmm.
something unclear? Is the why not there? Like why you need to
Hmm.
do this? So, defining, sometimes just defining the why someone needs to do a task is important as well.
Love that. I think if I could mention too, I've seen your predecessor do this as well. I think he I don't want to say that he would run towards a difficult conversation, but he would not avoid them.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
that's a strength. That's a real strength.
Yeah.
But let's jump to compliance real quick, Kurt, because you said the why, and I think that ties in a bit with what we were talking about regarding compliance and
Right.
when an agency comes in.
Yeah. So, we get tons of audits and inspections. Um, we have a lot of standard work in place, and that's what drives our success, right? We have a bunch of standard work. What I've found over the course of the past 5 years, hiring a bunch of new employees, bunch of new individuals
Can I stop you for
is,
one sec, Kurt?
yep,
when you, just for the listeners, when you say you have a bunch of standard work, can you just give a couple of examples of what that standard work is? Or maybe you're getting to that.
Yeah. So some standard work examples are, round sheets for the powerhouse, collecting data, reports, uh, chemical treatment reports, steam usage, um, and just collecting data and how we go about collecting that data. A lot of times the why is missed over the years, right? You know, this standard work was implemented 5 years ago, and now all new employees are doing it, and they're not really sure why are we collecting this usage report on this steam or this natural gas. But then say, no, this is in the standard work. This is on your round sheet. We're collecting this data. We're doing this PM because we need this information for the audit. It's on the EHS audit. It's on the site audit. It's on the fire protection audit. That's why we're testing hoses and testing sprinklers. It's not because we don't want the building to burn down, but that's part of it. But part of it is we're doing it to maintain compliance with the state, the federal government, the military, and that's why the standard work is in place, is to make sure we don't miss anything on the compliance side, on the safety side. And then what's helped me is understanding the why we do it. So then I can speak to the employees of, yeah, I know this doesn't seem like a very useful way to spend your time, but this is why we're doing it. So
That's huge. Do you see other leaders in the organization adopting that mentality too?
I do. I feel like it's gaining popularity. But when I first started here, and maybe it was just me, back as an intern, not really sure and asking a lot of questions, but I found myself back then doing a lot of things and be like, why is this needed? And then as I grew and developed and moved up in the company, I'm like, oh, we're doing it because of this. And then once I got direct reports, it's like, hey, when I was an intern, I had no idea why we're doing this, but this is the why. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. I understand.
Yep.
And it helps drive that standard work, helps make sure it gets done too. When they know why it needs to happen, it gets complete.
I'm sure they lean into it more too. It'll signify the importance of it, or emphasize the importance of it even more too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. Exactly.
I do want to jump to EH&S with you, Kirk, because I know EH&S is part of your team, and there's always that a lot of discussions here on the show and just through the years have been, how does facilities communicate with EH&S and vice versa? How do they work together? How do they most effectively work together? Since you work so closely with your EH&S manager and his team, how do you do that?
I think it's just asking questions and having that relationship with them. I don't know everything about the environment and the safety, but I always say, okay, if I do this, what happens? Is there an impact? And just going across the office and asking those questions, and next thing you know, there's a list of to dos. But it's helped us out. Just having that relationship and having them work side by side with us, of just asking the question and saying, hey, I'm not really sure what needs to happen here, but I'm doing this project. I'm sure there's some sort of, safety or environmental concerns we need to take it into account. Do you guys have any recommendations? And then, you do that a few times. Okay, I have another project. I took your recommendations from last time. This one's slightly different because it's a slightly different project. I'm concerned about this. What do you guys think? And then just getting their feedback and getting their buy-in and working with them closely is key. And making them aware of what's happening, right? Again, it goes back to the communication of making everyone aware that, hey, I'm putting these machines in, I'm building this condo, I'm replacing this natural gas line, replacing the boiler. A lot of times I may not see how it affects certain groups, but even if I can't see it, I'll say, hey, and I'll communicate it out to them. and then they'll bring up other concerns. So that's going to affect this process, and that's going to affect that process. And then we can resolve those issues before actually starting a project of just making people aware of the changes at the facility is critical as well.
I have a question about that. So making EH&S aware prior so you can get ahead of things that you should know or they should know and coach you on, but
Yeah,
as opposed to them seeing something and not being aware.
right,
Correct.
right.
Yeah, and I think we've both seen that happen at times. Maybe not firsthand, but and I want to jump back because we joked about it. Or you joked a little bit about it. The next thing you know, you have a laundry list of to dos. I think that's real because would that also cause facilities to maybe hesitate at times to go there because you're constricted by a certain amount. You have only a certain amount of time every day.
Yeah, yeah. We only have a certain amount of time, certain amount of capital, a certain amount of expense that we can do. Sometimes I might, stop a project. There's no, not enough egress path. There's X, Y, and Z that I didn't think of, and it's like, oh man, this is on a, stop the project or prolong the project a little bit. But if you start it at the very beginning and get them involved and get their
Mhm.
ideas and their feedback right at the start of that idea, by the time, you get to that point where you're working with finance on funding, all that is in place. All the details are worked out. And, you've met with a fire protection specialist, you met with the EHS, the environmental side, the safety side, uh, the security side, and maintenance side. And uh, I try to get to them and communicate to them of the changes way in way in advance. And sometimes it could just be, talking to this one manager or supervisor, and they have this idea of in the future, I'd like these pieces of equipment. And then just going back, hey, maybe next year this is gonna happen. And it may never happen, but at least the seeds are planted and people have it in the back of their head. So when it does arise in the future, it's not a shock. And
Mm.
taking that shock factor and like, what is happening? What are you guys doing? Taking that out of the equation helps out a lot too.
Got it. That brings us right to something else we talked about. That's resources, and you
Yeah.
already touched on a lot of this, but you have to pull on so many different finances,
Yeah.
or finance. You have to pull on. Management needs to stamp or approve. EH&S. You've got fire protection, like vendors, contractors, all of these things, and it all points to what you're saying. I believe is getting ahead of it. So how do you get ahead of it with the other ones, or is that accurate? How do you manage all these resources and acquire them?
I think it's the resources are built up over time, building that network of folks, network of vendors, building that relationship with the employees here at North Park, building those relationships outside with, like you folks and all the different other vendors that we operate with. So when there is a question or concern, you have the resources to call upon. Hey, Jay, I ran into this issue. Have you experienced this before?
Mhm.
And just being able to know who to call. I don't know everything,
Mhm.
um, but I rely on the folks that I surround myself with to help me answer some of those difficult questions. Or like, you know, have you been in this situation before? I don't know what to do. I think we should do this. Has your company been involved in this before? And just really relying on the network and um, I don't want to say maybe the community, like
Sure.
you got
Yeah.
2,400 employees here at our facility, and then numerous contractors that I've dealt with in the past, um, and just having the relationships with them and not being afraid to pick up the phone and give someone a quick call of, hey, I need some help. Have you ran into this before? What can we do? How how
Mhm.
how have you overcome it? And just getting some ideas, and even if they don't know, trying to figure out something or a solution on your own is difficult to talk to yourself in your head. A lot of times I've called, an engineering tech and or a vendor and just be like, hey, this is our problem. They may have not experienced it before, but just bouncing and working through it with another like-minded individual goes a long way.
Beautiful. Um, I want to touch on, your customers, of course, not specifically, but I mean, you serve the commercial airline industry, those aircraft, you serve the military. And the reason I bring this up is you have to pivot all the time. I've seen you have to do it with your team, and I only see snapshots, but how do can you plan for it? And when something changes, right? You need this engine, you need this part. We didn't know that. How do you pivot, adjust, and execute?
I think for me, the biggest thing I've done to help make sure we're successful here is having a long-term vision for the site based on growth, based on the age of the infrastructure, the equipment, and saying, I want to make sure Pratt's around for the next 20 to 30 years. What do I need to do on this project or in this scenario to make sure that happens? And that could be futures, that could be building up a case and starting collecting data to replace equipment and making sure, one, we don't disappoint, the customers, the commercial airlines, the military, the overhaul and repair side. But making sure folks here have jobs and making sure that this facility is going to be around for a long time coming, and just the small things, and having that 5 and 10 year vision. Having a 5 and 10 year vision and goals for that is huge. One project we just did is the powerhouse renovation. We completely gutted it, replaced, all 3 boilers, air compressors, the DA tank, and condensate tank. And back 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was, oh man, that would be nice to do. And so I started putting, futures in and valves, and every shutdown, start putting something in of, hey, it may never happen. But in the case that it does, and we get the funding or we need to, we have the ability to still run the plant while upgrading the entire powerhouse. And that's exactly what we did this year is all those future, water lines, all the future steam valves, and condensate lines. It all played a critical role in doing this project and making the plant be able to run for the next 20, 30 years with these boilers or compressors. And that was just a vision I had 5 or 6, 7 years ago, and just started adding those little bit of details in there. But I think it really starts with having that long-term vision. Don't get me wrong. I have my daily tasks, my monthly tasks, weekly tasks, and 1 year goals,
Sure.
inside and outside of work. But and then constantly revisiting those. Okay, yeah, I had this 5 year vision like 2 years ago, but things change constantly, and constantly updating all those visions, all those goals, and making sure you're able to be successful and hit every target that you need to.
It's brilliant, brilliant, Kurt. That's great vision and great planning. Thank you for sharing that with us.
No problem, Jay. Thank you.
I don't know how you juggle your time, man. That's the only other thing I wanted to ask you. Like you make it sound easy, and I know you execute it, and it looks like it's easy for you. But how do you do it? I mean, there's only so much time in the day, and there's tasks thrown at you constantly.
I get asked that a lot inside work and outside of work. I just started a nut butter company, all natural nut butter company.
Oh, hold on for a minute. The listeners can't see it, but there we go.
Yeah,
shameless plug right there. Nokomis
yeah,
Nuts. Yeah.
Nokomis Nuts. But whether it be a company or weightlifting, exercising, running, and then work alone, right? I think it's just having that relentless drive of being better and moving forward, and taking that and just continually improving on myself, continually improving on my work, and not staying complacent and staying in one spot too long. And I'm a runner too, Jay, and I think I've learned a lot from running. Um, it's one of those things where, I'll go on a 10, 15, 20 mile run and be like, man, why am I doing this? This is painful. But it allows me to be comfortable in painful situations. And I take that
Mm,
from, whether it be exercise or running. And then once you go through that hard experience, that hard situation, the next time it's not that hard, right? Um, so I always try to push myself and do those uncomfortable things because then knowing the next time I'm faced with that uncomfortable task, it's gonna be a little bit easier. It's gonna be a little bit easier the next time, and just
mhm.
continually pushing yourself and pushing the limits. There's always a solution out there. Finding that solution, um, and just working in that zone of, all right, this is getting a little uncomfortable, but then you get through it. You're happy. You succeeded. You didn't give up, and then
Mhm.
next time you go do it, it's just that much easier.
Good for you. I have to I'm going to expand on that just because I've been impressed again and again and again and again. Every time we talk, there's something new that you're challenging yourself with, whether it's hunting in a region where you're freezing at night and
Yeah,
hot as hell in the
yeah,
daytime, right? And
yeah.
you have to hunt to actually eat, or you're doing a controlled burn of a house that you just bought so you can
Uh,
build a brand new one,
yeah.
right? Or you're starting up a nut butter company. You're always doing something to push yourself. It's very impressive.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jay. And
Sure.
yeah, you just said the controlled burn on my house. That was an experience, and for the listeners that don't know the backstory, I bought abandoned property. Um, they were hoarders, and the barn. They had this 40 by 80 barn, just full. I mean, 3 stores full of trash. This old 1863 house, just in shambles. And I bought it, and then I wanted the property as a beautiful piece. I cold called a guy for 8 months, 6 months, and finally got him to
Which
sell
is
it to me.
impressive in itself, not to
Yeah,
cut you off, but that's very determined.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I wanted it, and I figured it's been abandoned for years, and why let it go to waste and see. And I had a vision, right? I that 5 year, 10 year vision, right? Like,
Hmm.
oh, you know, a farm would be good here, and X, Y, and Z. This would be perfect for it, and making it happen, and you know, getting all the fire departments in the 5 local towns to all come together and do a controlled burn on the house while saving the barn. It was looking back, I'm like, wow, that was crazy. How did I ever figure that all out? But it was just that mindset of, anything's possible.
Sure.
Um, keep a positive mindset, and just if you just keep working on something, I find that it always seems to happen if you just have a positive mindset, always work towards that goal. Um, I don't know when it will happen, but if you always keep working, you will get there one day.
Hmm. I could not agree more with the positive mindset.
Yeah.
It keeps you moving forward. And kidding aside, I know I joked a little bit about a plug for your company, but kudos to you and Nokomis Nuts. Is it nokomisnuts.com?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, you
nokomisnuts.com. Yep.
started,
You,
you go ahead. I mean, please tell us just a little bit about the company because it's an excellent product that you're producing, and it's impressive how you're producing it and selling it.
yeah. So it kind of started last year. Um, I, you know, like I mentioned before, runner into lifting, fitness, just trying to stay healthy, and was experiencing some health issues with, gut and this and that, and serving on seed oils and all this stuff that was in peanut. I love peanut butter. I use rice cake and peanut butter like every night, or almond butter every night. And one of the things I found was, I think that's what's causing some of my issues. So talking with my girlfriend, she's like, "Well, we should just try making it. Buy the raw nuts. Um, don't add any of those fillers. No salt, no oil, no sugar. Why does it need that?" I'm like, I agreed. I just want the nut flavor in my almond butter or my peanut butter, or we have the cashew butter in a blend. But So that's kind of where it started, and we developed this, process and standard work, and got um, a product that I'm like, man, this is so good, and I got addicted to it. I eat it every day,
It
and
is good.
I wanted to get it out there for folks, and just be like, why hold this to myself? There's folks out there that may be trying to get away from sugar, may don't want the added salt, don't want any
Mhm.
seed oils or the extra oils. Um, so I gave, just like I always wanted my own company. This is a great product. I want to provide this to everybody. Everyone deserves it. It's a clean, all natural nut butter, and just started going from there. Developed it all, got the licensing, and did my first kind of little farmers market back in May, and you know, I excited my first farmers market. Like, this is gonna be cool, and there was a Saturday and Sunday farmers market. I made, I think, 80, 100 jars total, several of each flavor. We have 4 flavors, so I made several of each. I'm like, well, if I sell 10 all weekend, 10 jars all weekend, I'll be happy. Well, by the end of the day, Saturday, I'd sold out. So I stayed up to
So
the wee
impressive.
hours of the morning, and, 2, 3 a.m. roll around. I have another 80 jars from the next day. Boom, sell out. And then I'm like, man, this is all the product I have at my house, right? I have nothing at this point. But then that's where I'm like, oh, I've already talked to, my nut distributor, built that relationship. I called him up Monday morning. I said, hey, I need a favor already. I just did my first farmer's market. I ran out. Can you get me some nuts here in a couple days so I have some stuff for the next weekend? And it's just been growing and developing from that, and did a lot of farmers markets. Did our first fair a few weekends ago. That did great. And we'll be at another big fair here in Maine coming end of this month. So
What's the name of the fair coming up?
Freiburg Fair. Yeah.
And didn't you mention there's a crazy amount of people going
Yeah.
through?
So I know it's a big fair. Talking with the folks there, I asked the question, how many people do you expect? That way we can, make sure we bring enough product, right? And they had 270,000 people is their recommended,
Ooh.
or that go to the fair, their average 270,000. So I was like, well, I don't know if I can bring enough product to handle that, but I'll bring as much as I can. So yeah.
Very impressive. That's awesome. Good luck. Good
I
luck at the
appreciate
fair. Of
that. Thank you. Thank you.
course. Kurt, thanks for all you shared. I mean, personally, professionally, and all the advice. I know I learned a lot. Everyone listening, I'm sure, picked up a few nuggets here and there that they can go implement in their next their next project.
Huh.
Can't thank you for enough for being on the show, man.
Well, thank you, Jay. This was a great opportunity, and I hope people can take the information and apply it to their work or personal lives and grow and develop. I love seeing people grow and develop. So anything I can do to help out the industry or the community or the folks, that's what I want to do. So
It's I like the word community that you've used a few times because that's really truly what we want to build, right? So we can all help each other.
yeah.
How should people reach out to you if they're interested in some of the stuff you said, whether it's Nokomis Nuts or Pratt and Whitney best practices?
Yeah, they can reach me if it's Pratt Whitney best practices. They can go to my work email, which is curtis.moulton at prattwhitney.com. And if they ever want to, have some all natural nut butter, they can go to nokomisnuts.com. They can message us through the website. Go to our Instagram page, Nokomis Nuts. Message us through there as well, or just follow us on our Instagram or Facebook page as well. So either way, they can reach out to me, and I more than happy to answer any questions they have about work or the all natural nut butter company or just life in general.
That's
So
awesome. Perfect. And for the spelling Nokomis, that's Nokomis. So
yeah.
Nokomis.com. Kurt, thank you again. And thank you very much to all the listeners. Thanks for spending the time with us. If you laughed or if you learned, tell someone else about the show. And we'll see everybody on the next Facility Rockstars. It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.